Press the green one again. Oh, is that one plugged in? That one's not plugged in. Your headphones.
You can hear yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Just a little technical difficulty. Press the green one. Can you hear me now? No, now I can't hear me.
No, I can't hear you. Okay, but
Hello,
can
hello?
you talk?
Hello, hello?
Yeah.
Press the green one again.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, you still can't hear me?
No, but let me see if I can hear you here.
Okay. Sorry, we had to unplug everything.
Yeah.
Okay. We just wanted to make sure that you all could hear us. So my name is Kimberly Swiglow, and I am a paralegal here at the Law Office of Oluwasegun. I do apologize that Dr. Oshekun is not here in person. He does have court today, but I do have him on the phone, so you will be able to get your questions answered. Today we are discussing citizenship. We started a citizenship series a couple of weeks ago, and to be able to apply. So that's what we will be discussing this week. And as Dr. Shekun says, we do this every Wednesday at noon Central Time, so 1 Eastern Time. And I can't remember if it's 6 or 7 Nigerian time now. But yes, we do this every Wednesday, so please join us. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. That way you'll get the notifications about when we're going live and when we post updates. And then also we are on other social media. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We are going to be posting the handles on the screen. So please go ahead, go like those posts, go follow us. We post kind of shorter videos that answer really common questions that we get. And it's a good way to interact with us when you may not have time for the entire podcast. But we always love when you join us live. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get Dr. Oshekun here on the line. Hello, Dr. Oshekun?
Yes, Kim, I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so we are live on the podcast. We have done our introductions. So do you want to just go ahead and get started with just a kind of brief overview on how travel will affect your citizenship eligibility?
Yes, I will do that. And
Okay.
once I'm ready, you start reading the questions. Then I'll be able
Perfect.
to answer it.
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon once again, listeners. Apology for not being physically present in the office. As previously pointed out, I'm currently at the immigration court in Dallas. I had to step out to be able to do this over the phone so that we don't miss an entire week. So today we are discussing how travel outside of the United States affects citizenship eligibility. Generally, every permanent resident who desires to be a citizen is required to meet physical presence requirement. There is a percentage, and the percentage is 50%. 50% of the eligibility category. In other words, if your category requires you to be a permanent resident for 5 years before you can be eligible for citizenship, out of that 5 years, you must be physically present in the United States for at least 50% of the time. In other words, for at least 2.5 years. But that is not even the issue. The main challenge and the kind of questions we get, and from experience, is how to calculate that 2.5%. Because under immigration law, whenever you become a permanent resident and you start accruing the physical presence requirement, once you travel out of the United States for a period of up to 180 days, which is about 6 months, the number of years or months or days that you have acquired towards citizenship will be eliminated, will be erased. In other words, the button will reset. So whenever you return to the United States, you you have to start all over again. Let me give you an example. Let's say my category, I have a green card, I'm a permanent resident, and under my category, I'm required to be a permanent resident for 5 years. Now, I've been a permanent resident for the past 3 years. And I decided to travel out of the United States. And I travel and I spend 181 days out of the US. Whenever I return, I will have to start that 5 years all over again because I've stayed outside of the United States for more than 180 days. All the 3 years that I've acquired physically will be erased completely. So when I return, I have to start the counting all over again. This does not affect my green card in that example. Your green card remains valid. However, for the purpose of citizenship, I will no longer qualify. I will have to start the 5 years all over again. There are different categories of eligibility for citizenship. We have discussed that, I think, in one of the prior podcasts. There are some people who are required to be a permanent resident only for 1 day. There are some people who are required to be a permanent resident for 3 years. And there are people who are required to be a permanent resident for 5 years. So in all of the categories, days or more, the moment you stay out of the country for 180 days or more, then the number of days, months, years that you have accrued will be eliminated, will be cancelled. So on your return, you have to start all over again. So that is what we are discussing today. So if you have questions, please send in your question. As I've indicated, I'm currently in court, so I'm not even sure I will be able to spend the entire 1 hour on this podcast. But send in your questions so that I can answer as many as possible before they get to my turn in the court.
Okay, so
do we have questions yet?
We do. So the first one is, if I'm a permanent resident, is there anything that I can do before traveling for an extended period that will protect my ability to file for citizenship?
Oh yes. Number one, as I explained just now, eligibility for citizenship is different from eligibility for green card. If you stay out of the US for 6 months or more, it doesn't affect your green card. It is the citizenship that is affected. However, there are some exceptions to it. If you stay out of the US for more than 180 days because you are in the US military serving abroad, it does not affect your eligibility. If you stay out of the US because you are working for an American company that is serving the national interest, maybe you have a Mobile USA and you are working for Mobile USA abroad, and you continue to receive your salary in the US, you continue to pay your taxes in the US, you continue to file your taxes in the US. So that will not, the 6 month thing will not affect you in such a situation. Another exception, if you are working for an international organization that is recognized by the US, for example, if you are an employee of the United Nations and you are stationed abroad, the 180 days will not affect your eligibility for citizenship. Your citizenship will be preserved. However, outside of those exceptions, if you want to stay out of the United States for an extended period, you can apply for what is called travel permit. So when you do that, they will give you a passport. You use that passport together with your green card to travel in and out of the United States. What that does is that it protects your green card. So even if you stay out of the US for 2 years, for 3 years, your green card is not affected because you have been given advance permission to stay out of the country. But that does not mean that you will be eligible for citizenship, because the physical presence requirement for citizenship in that situation, you may not meet it, but at least your green card is certain, your green card is protected. So you can protect your green card and you can continue to use your green card to travel in and out of the country.
Okay, thank you. The next question that we have is, if I got my green card through asylum and I travel to the country from which I sought asylum, could my citizenship be denied?
Well, that will not affect your citizenship. However, during the citizenship interview, they may review your situation. They may review your application for asylum, because the only time an immigration benefit can be revoked is if immigration have evidence that the benefit was obtained by fraud in the first place. So if you stated in your application for asylum that your life will be in danger if you go back to your home country, and then they approve your asylum, give you permanent residence, and then the next thing you started traveling to the country you claimed. So that may raise a review during your citizenship, because during citizenship, you are required to declare the number of countries that you have visited, the number of days you have spent in each country. So invariably, the fact that you travel to your home country will show up during citizenship. So it is not advisable to do that during citizenship until you become a U.S. citizen. Of course, once you are a citizen, you are a citizen. So even if you travel to that country after you become a citizen, it will no longer affect it.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question is, okay, I spent more than 6 months outside of the US this past year, and I was due to apply for citizenship in January next year. Am I still eligible for US citizenship if I did not spend more than 50% outside in total for the past?
Applying for citizenship is no longer eligible. So upon your re-entry, you have to start the 5 years all over again from the date of re-entry into the US.
Okay. The next question is, I recently went for my naturalization interview, but the officer that interviewed me believes I spent more than 50% of the last 5 years.
Decision. So by filing Form N336, you will be requesting for a hearing so that they review the decision of that officer. So you can contest it. You can contest it. Even if they deny the N336, you can actually go to court to contest it, to challenge it by filing application for review at the federal court. Yeah, you have a right to contest it. But of course, you have to check your own record to be sure that you are not wasting your money and time.
And I'm sure having records and providing those would be helpful too. If you can show that, you know, maybe I was in the country because, I don't know, if they have a video or they were working that day, something to show that they weren't out of the country on those days that the officer is saying.
The most important evidence is the travel history.
Yes.
Because it is possible for somebody to be working remotely.
Of
so
course,
the most important evidence in this situation is the travel history. Remember, every time you travel, except if you drive, but every time you travel, as the airline is checking you in, they are swiping your green card. So there is record of your exit. There is a record of your re-entry. So all this record is what you need to pull. And it is easy nowadays. You can check your passport for all the stamps. In addition, you can go to CBP website to check your travel record. So you calculate all these things. You can look at all your tickets to confirm the date that you travel and the date that you came back in.
Yes.
But travel history is the is the easiest way to prove that you are in the country.
Yes. Okay. Then the next question that we have is, I travel a lot for work purposes, and I have spent most of the last 5 years in Alaska and Puerto Rico. Will I still be eligible for citizenship?
Oh yes, Alaska and Puerto Rico are part of U.S. territories. Yes, you are still eligible if you don't go beyond those territories, because those are still part of U.S. territories.
Okay. And then the next question was, who doesn't need to meet the 5-year continuous resident requirement?
Well, there are different categories for citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Those who obtain their permanent residency through employment-based petition, they are required to wait 5 years before applying for citizenship. Those who obtain their green card through marriage to a U.S. citizen, they are required to be a permanent resident for 3 years before applying for citizenship. Those who military duties, they are required to be a permanent resident for 1 day before being eligible for citizenship. And for those categories, it does not necessarily have to be the applicant. For example, somebody whose spouse is in the U.S. military can still apply under the 1 day requirement. For example, if I'm a permanent resident, but my spouse is in active military duty, I'm not required to wait for 3 years before being eligible for permanent for citizenship. Or if I'm the parent of someone who is in active military duty, they are not required to wait for 5 years before applying for citizenship. In actual fact, the definition is immediate family of someone who is in active military duty, or if the applicant himself or herself is in active military duty, they are only required to be permanent resident for 1 day.
Okay. The next question that I have is, I travel to Mexico weekly, but typically for under 24 hours each visit. Could this make me ineligible for U.S. citizenship?
No, if you go in and come back under 24 hours, so I'm sure that if it is only 24 hours in a week, that means he's spending the remaining 6 days in a week in the U.S. So definitely that will not disqualify the person.
Okay. The next one, I have a family member that I have to take care of outside of the U.S. for an extended period of time. Is there anything that I can do to help me with this without hurting my chances of becoming a naturalized citizen?
Well, unfortunately, if you stay out of the U.S. for an extended period, it's going to affect the eligibility for citizenship. But in order to protect your green card, you can apply for travel document. So once you apply for the travel document and it is approved, they will give you a passport. So the passport will enable you to keep your green card. But of course, for citizenship purpose, whenever you return, you still have to meet the physical presence requirement.
Yes. Okay. The next question, can I travel outside of the U.S. after I file for citizenship, but before my interview?
Yes, you can travel for as long as the travel is a very short one. Yes, you can travel. So if you travel, one, ensure that the travel is a short one that will not impact your physical presence requirement. Two, ensure that you disclose the travel after you come back. Remember, you will have submitted an application where all your previous travel history will have been listed. So when you return, you have to make sure, especially during interview, you have to make sure that you disclose this last travel so that nothing can count against you. But yes, you can travel for a short period.
And then the next question, my fiance and I will be living abroad for an extended period of time due to him being in the army. Could this affect me negatively if I decide to apply for citizenship? I believe you just touched on this a little bit.
I just touched on it. That would actually be a positive
Yeah.
thing. If the spouse is in the military, that would be positive. It's going to expedite the citizenship eligibility.
Okay. Let me see. I think those are all of the questions that I have right now. Let me see.
But if you believe that we need the expertise of an attorney, especially depending on the reason why your naturalization application was denied in the first place, so it's always better to use an attorney if you can afford it. But at the same time, it's not mandatory.
Yes.
If you are literate and you understand the rules, you can represent yourself. There's no law that says you cannot represent yourself.
Okay. But I will say, due to the technical nature of N336, it would probably be advisable to at least consult with an immigration attorney. Even if you decide to represent yourself, to at least consult with one. Okay. Let me go back to this list. Okay. Here's another question. I believe you answered this. How long out of the 3 or 5 years of the 3 to 5 years stay do I have to spend in the U.S. to be eligible for citizenship?
50% of the time. You have to spend 50% of the time. So if your category is 3 years, that means you must be physically present in the U.S. for at least 1.5 years. However, that within that 1.5 years, you cannot stay out within the 3-year period. You cannot stay out of the U.S. for a continuous period of 6 months. Once you do that, it will eliminate whatever time you have spent. But you can go out within that 3 years. If your category is 3 years, you can go out, spend 4 months, come back in. You can go out, spend 5 months, come back in. For as long as within that 3 years, you are physically present in the U.S. for at least 1.5 years. Out of that 1.5 years, there was no time that you are outside the U.S. for at least 6 months, 180 days or more. Then you will be eligible.
Okay. Let me see. For those who are watching live, please continue to send in your questions. As the lawyer has said, he only has a limited amount of time today, so he will be going back into the courtroom shortly. So any questions that you have on this topic, please go ahead and send them to us. You can send them in either through the chat option on YouTube, or you can text them in to 817-983-4499 or 817-883-4495. And you can also use those phone numbers to call or text us to book an appointment to speak with the lawyer through a consultation. Let me see. Okay. One just came in. Okay. I was scheduled for my N400 interview, but I will be out of the country. Can it be rescheduled?
Oh yes, you can request a reschedule of your interview. Yes, it can be rescheduled. So just write a letter to immigration and notify them that you had a pre-planned travel out of the US and request them to reschedule your interview. You can actually attach evidence of your planned trip and then they will do it. However, make sure you do this on time because
Yes.
I can tell you this from experience. When you communicate with USCIS, because of the system, because of the way the system is set up, your letter may not go directly to the officer who is handling your
Yes.
case. In fact, not even may not. Your letter
It
will
won't.
not go directly to the officer who is handling your case. Every mail that is addressed to USCIS goes through the mail room. So by the time they open it at the mail room, they will now distribute it to the individual offices where the letter is directed. And by the time it gets to the officer who is handling your case, the date of the interview may have passed. So that is why if you know that you are not going to be physically available in the country, as soon as you receive the interview letter, send in a letter asking them to reschedule it. If you wait, delay could be dangerous because it could be denied for abandonment before the officer get to see the letter.
Yes. And the same actually goes for biometrics. Now, luckily with biometrics, you can reschedule that online now. That's a new feature with USCIS that wasn't available before, but now you can actually reschedule biometrics appointments online. And then the person had a follow-up question, is any reason valid for it to be rescheduled? Sir? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Is there any additional question?
The next one was, what form do I need to file to apply to preserve residence for naturalization purposes?
That's I-131. Form I-131.
And there's also form N470, I think it is. It depends on the N470 is for the U.S. Armed Forces. That, yes, okay. That if you have been physically present in the United States as a permanent resident for an uninterrupted period of at least 1 year prior to working abroad, and the application may be filed either before or after the applicant's employment begins, but before the applicant has been abroad. So that one is specifically for armed forces, I believe. So I do believe that that's the last question that we have right now, and I do believe that you need to get back into the courtroom.
Yes, I
Okay.
have to because
Yeah.
in addition, I have to go through the security
Yeah.
again because I already stepped out of the
Yeah, out of the building.
courtroom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to go through security again. So I will have to.
Yes.
But you can still stay on the line. I
Okay.
believe that if there are questions that you are not able to answer, you can reserve it. I'll probably answer it next week.
Okay.
For listeners, I'm not the only attorney in my office, but unfortunately, all attorneys today, we all have cases in court,
Yes.
and we are all in court.
Yes.
So that is why we are in this situation. Otherwise, another attorney will have taken over, but we are all in court.
Yes.
We are all in court today. So today is one of those days where we don't have a choice because we don't have control over the scheduling of the court. We just receive hearing notice with the date and time, and we don't have control over it.
Yes.
It is when we are in court and we want to schedule, that's when we can discuss the date with the judge.
Yes.
But in a situation where we receive the hearing notice, it comes with date and time, and we are not able to change it.
Yes.
And also, we don't want to prolong the client's case by rescheduling the case.
Of course.
So that is why we have to come in and do today's podcast in this situation. But I have competent assistant who will stay on the line at least between the two of them that is handling the podcast right now is over 20 years experience in immigration law. So I have confidence that they will be able to continue. For now, I have to be excused. I have to go back into the courtroom.
Okay.
Thank you again, and I hope to see you next week. God's willing.
Okay. Good luck. Okay, so I believe those were all the questions that we had right now. As the lawyer said, if you continue to send in questions, then he can go ahead and answer them next week. We will make sure to write them down. And next week, we will be continuing our current citizenship series. And we will be discussing... Let me see. I believe it's how crime will impact your chances of citizenship. Let me see. Yes, how crime will impact your eligibility for citizenship. So during that one, we'll discuss what may happen if you do commit a crime or are convicted of a crime before or during your citizenship process. And then while I am looking that up, I would like to reiterate that we are on social media, all over social media. We have an Instagram page, which is currently up on the screen right now. And then we also have, this YouTube channel where we also post shorts. And then we have TikTok, Twitter, or I guess now it's called X. I'm still not used to that. And then we have Facebook as well, which is currently up on the screen. And as I mentioned, we just post some shorter videos, typically topics that we cover in the podcast as well, but not always specifically what we're covering in the podcast. A lot of them are questions that we get asked frequently, or it's things that we think people should know if they have an immigration case. And we post on a wide variety of topics. And we also post some funny videos. So you get to see us behind the scenes a little bit. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to turn that off before we came on. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I do not see any additional questions on the YouTube channel, nothing that has not been answered previously. So, as we said, we do this every Wednesday at noon Central Time, so 1 p.m. Eastern. And when the lawyer is here, he typically stays on for a full hour. As he said, because he's in court, he was not able to do so today. But next week he will be coming back and we'll be doing how crime impacts citizenship. And we hope to see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. That way you're notified every time we go ahead and go live or we post something new. And as I mentioned before, go ahead and at least check out our social media. Follow us if you can. We post some good content on there. So thank you so much. We hope to see you next week.